Welcome to American Dreams. I have with me Andrew Olsen. Andrew, welcome to today's show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
So, Andrew, you're a cast member of this I Love You, You Hate Me documentary on Barney. Let's start with where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so I didn't come up with the idea for this docuseries. I'm, a cast member in it, but essentially the series is about the human need to hate and how kind of this hatred scapegoat in the 90s became Barney the Dinosaur. A character that stands for love, acceptance, and inclusion somehow became the target for this furious backlash that culture had for him. And so the docuseries really explores how that came about and how it affected everyone that was involved.
So, why have you, as an adult, gravitated towards a character that was designed for preschoolers?
Well, a little background on myself. I grew up in the 90s. I'm a millennial. Grew up with Barney. I watched Barney all through my childhood, through probably middle school, before I graduated off of him. And, come the pandemic, I was going through a lot of anxiety and depression, like a lot of people were. And I really went back to my roots of what gave me comfort as a child. What could I lean on to get through this? I had moved across the country from California to Virginia. I didn't have any family, any friends within 1,000 miles of me, and so it felt really alone. And in order to kind of cope with that loneliness and cope with anxiety and depression, I decided to go back to Barney as I did as a child. Because in his essence, really, Barney, to me, I don't see a character that, teaches preschoolers their ABCs and one, two, threes. I see a character that stands for love, acceptance, and inclusion. And those are all characteristics that I strive to emulate in my own life. And I think that everyone should emulate in, their own lives as well.
So, Andrew, how did you get involved with this docuseries? I Love You, You Hate Me.
Yeah, so this really goes back to during the pandemic, like I said, I kind of gravitated towards Barney in order to cope. And as I kind of pursued Barney, and tried to use him as my coping mechanism, I discovered this whole fan base online of professional working adults like myself that still held on to Barney. And as I connected with a lot of them, I made a lot of great friends. I started learning about Barney in ways that, I hadn't thought about before. I learned the creation story, I learned a lot of the history. And the creation story in and of itself is amazing. It's a true American dream story with, two stay at home moms creating or solving a problem, that there wasn't enough children's programming out there for their children. And so they created Barney. But the further I dug into the history of Barney, the more I realized that there was really no way or no centralized location to learn about it. There's newspaper clippings and articles and, Wikipedia pages, but there was really no centralized area to learn about all these stories. And so I decided, along with a couple other friends, to start a online fan group called Barney History Fans for um, telling Barney's history and Barney's story and preserving that story for future generations. And about after a month after I created this, the producers of the docuseries "I Love You, You Hate Me" reached out to me, and asked me to get involved in some respect. And so we met a couple times over Zoom. I introduced them to some Barney crew members that I'd befriended over the past couple years. And one thing led to another. They invited me out to New York to do some filming sessions. And so that's really, the story of how I got roped into all of this.
So, where do you feel that so much hatred for this character came from in the 90s?
So I feel like Barney was in the right place at the right time to receive all his hatred. In the early 90s was really when the internet was becoming commercially accessible to most Americans. Um, and finally, people had, a device to hide behind in order to express this hatred. Um, if the internet was out in, say, the 70s, we may have seen the same backlash for Sesame Street. But it just so happened that this character that exuded so much positivity received all this hatred online. It's a lot easier to, say I hate you behind a computer desk than it is to say it face to face. And the real root of the hatred for Barney came from adults and parents. Um, Barney was never meant for anyone other than preschoolers, unlike Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers, that is meant for parents to watch with their children. The producers deliberately created a show specifically for preschoolers, and adults really never understood that, and that's where the root of all this hatred came from.
Do you feel that people's perception of Barney changed over the past 30 years?
I feel so. I Since the trailer came out, I've read through a lot of comments, and a lot of people are, saying, "Why would anyone hate Barney? Barney stood for love, acceptance, and inclusion." And I think it's a mindset change that's happened in the past 30 years. My generation that grew up with Barney, we're all adults now. And as children, we were really indoctrinated with the messages of love. With the end of every Barney video, Barney comes up and says, "I love you." And so this universal message of love that really transcends cultures, languages, and barriers, I feel has really resonated with the people that grew up watching Barney, and a lot of them, try to exude that same love and acceptance today.
And so, what's the main takeaway you wish to come from this docuseries?
The main takeaway, I hope, is people will look at hatred, online hatred, um, through a new lens. Still, there's a lot of online hatred through social media. People feel that they can say anything and get away with it because they're not saying it face to face. And I feel that after they'll see this series, they'll think about that differently. They'll see the effects that words have on people. The cast and crew, there was people in the cast and crew that would receive death threats just for being a part of Barney, and that really affected them mentally through the years. And having the creator hearing songs about killing her beloved creation. Um, so in the end, after people watch this, I really hope that they'll go through life in a new light and kind of think about what they're saying before they say it.
Well, Andrew, it's been a pleasure having you on American Dreams today, and best wishes to the docuseries that releases October 11th on the Peacock Network. And so, any final word?
Well, we're actually releasing October 12th. So October 12th on Peacock, we'll have the series up there. I hope everyone will go and watch it and take something away from it.
Andrew, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.